So I have talked about this before, and this is about terminology. Terminology in Okinawan martial arts is a difficult matter because most of the terminologies have been developed only in the second half of the 20th century. So there are only very few actually old or even ancient terms. Many of such ancient terms are found in the village bujutsu, which is not really a martial arts bujutsu, but it once was an original martial art. So there are interesting terminology that have not found their way so far into the modern martial arts of Okinawa, which includes things like ashigiri. Ashigiri would be a foot cut. So techniques that are today referred to as uke, as a deflection or block, like geran uke, like this. Well, you could think of this being original an attack, like an ashigiri. So you wouldn't defend, but you would cut to the leg. You know, it's a devastating blow. If you hit the ankle or you hit the knee, you got the ligaments and all that, you know, so the dangerous technique. So probably because these techniques were dangerous and could easily hurt someone in the hands of a bad person, it would be very bad for the community, right? So this might have been the reason why they changed the terminology. And so this terminology also differs from school to school. So if I change the terminology, I change the assigned meaning to the technique. For instance, the first technique in Tsukin Tonakaki no uēku is this. But people do it very, very differently. And sometimes there are no names at all for it. There's no name for the technique. There's no name assigned to it. So there's no mental image of what it is. And sometimes it is. And I'm just giving you one idea. So what you always can do is say, oh, do it like this. And then figure something out yourself, right? Because that's one of the genius ideas of kata, of fighting moves without a partner, that the interpretation can be just anything. That's why we have such a vast, huge, and interesting, let's call it a global bunkai scene, right? A global how to make kumite from kata moves, empty-handed kata moves, or even weapon kata moves that are not already kumite techniques. How can I make sense of kata moves? That's one thing. So the terminology is both a problem and a solution, right? And even if you go and say, okay, if your sensei says, just do it like this, and you come up with an interpretation for it, then you have the interpretation. Then you're at a point where you could add the terminology. Anyway, you can think about this issue. It's very interesting, but I'm going to give you one term that's used for this technique. And I don't think you figured it out. I don't think you know it or heard it, but it's an official term written in the description of the kata by one of the main masters of the styles. Around 1980, he wrote it down. So I don't know if it's really old or if he came up with it himself or if he asked his teachers and the teachers explained something to him and he came up with this term. But it's a very basic and typical modern martial arts term of Okinawan Kokuru. And it is a geran barai. So what you do here is nothing else. Within that interpretation, when I use that term, it's a lower level sweep. Lower level, so lower level is everything below my belly. Here, that is a sweep. So I'm sweeping something here. Whatever it is, I'm not going to say or assume something. I'm just going to say, okay, There's something I have to sweep away here. So what I'm doing is, I try to do this. And after this, I counter it. So, hey, this is the barai, and then I counter it by uēku, which is like this, right? So the uēku is a blade cut. So the harai ukis can be a kick, right? If a kick comes in, I would probably move differently, not in the cut, like in the kata, like stepping here, but I would just use the right leg as the pivot, and I would pivot counterclockwise on the right leg, like this. So I would, here comes the kick, I'm going out, and I'm going to counter. There's no need for an explanation for the counter. This is going to hurt, right?